El Chapo has smuggled more drugs over the U.S. border than any other cartel on the planet. Authorities say that he made at least $14 billion. But how? This was all due to a game-changing idea: drug tunnels. But how did El Chapo build a network of passageways to silently carry cocaine to the U.S.? And how did he use the same method to escape a maximum security prison? Well, first, he built an army. What sets El Chapo apart from other drug lords isn't his violent methods, but it's his confidence and intelligence. Still, he knew he couldn't do everything alone. He had to summon up an army of people to build the craziest gambits ever. And eventually, he did just that. But in 1990, he was only a young drug smuggler with a pitch and a dream. Pay me 40% of your drug shipment, and I'll get it across the U.S. border faster than anyone. As the young man said these words, the supplier was a little hesitant. The price was higher than that of other Mexican traffickers, but something in El Chapo's attitude convinced him. It was the confidence of someone who had bribed a stable of the federal police. El Chapo knew he could deliver on his promise. So the supplier flew El Chapo's first drug shipment in 5 planes to Sinaloa in Mexico, and in less than a week, the future drug lord smuggled more than 5,000 pounds of cocaine from Mexico into Los Angeles. From then on, El Chapo built a complex organization with technical prowess, leadership structure, and innovative use of chili pepper cans. And this dedicated team would make all of the difference in the end. And this is how the operation worked. Cocaine was processed in Colombia, and back then it was worth $3,000 per kilogram. Each shipment was divided between the Sinaloa cartel in Mexico and the Colombians. The upfront purchase of the cocaine was divided between multiple leaders, each responsible for their own territory. This way, if there were a drug seizure, the whole operation wouldn't be affected. After crossing the U.S. border, cocaine's value increased substantially. $20,000 per kilogram in Los Angeles, $25,000 in Chicago, and in New York, where the risk of seizure was the highest, the cost was up to $35,000 per kilogram. But besides the complex logistical structure, one last element guaranteed the operation's success: crooked officers. The cartel paid officials to escort drug shipments and provide tips about upcoming police raids. The pay was more than $1 million a month. That's a superstar salary. But what about the tunnels? It was commonplace to smuggle drugs through airplanes, but El Chapo didn't want to be like everyone else. He wanted a safer, stealthier, and more innovative method to further his operation. So, in the late 1980s, the Sinaloa boss hired an architect to build a short tunnel that led from an attorney's house in Mexico to a warehouse owned by the cartel in Arizona. The tunnel was about 200 feet long, and once it was done, El Chapo told a partner to call their suppliers in Colombia and said, "Tell them to send all the drugs that they can." This was the beginning of El Chapo's most lucrative period in his entire career, and this single idea would later get him out of prison. After that, the Sinaloa cartel put a lot of money into building tunnels. They built super tunnels that crossed the U.S. border like veins and were equipped with electric lights, motorized carts, and even ventilation systems. But these underground paths weren't built by ordinary people. The cartel hired skilled engineers to develop and reinforce the tunnels. This way, they could have ingenious entryways. For example, the Mexican entrance to the first tunnel was hidden by a pool table that was lifted by a hydraulic system from the concrete floor. The same entrance would actually also be the downfall of the operation. After a cartel member forgot to lower the pool table, law enforcement discovered the tunnel in 1990. Now, the cartel needed to quickly figure out a plan B to move tons of cocaine inventory. So, cartel members came up with a diabolical plan to sneak cocaine from Tijuana to Los Angeles. I swear this is the kind of stuff that you see in movies, man. The cartel transported the drugs on big trucks with jalapeno cans hidden inside. Cans were packaged with fake chili pepper company labels in Mexican distribution centers. Workers filled them with unique gravel that made them sound and feel like they were full of water if inspectors shook them. But that's not it. Not satisfied, El Chapo came up with an even more impressive smuggling method: trains. And at the ends of each train car, El Chapo's workers welded metal walls in which vacuum-sealed bags of cocaine and marijuana were hidden. Workers put grease on the bags to keep drug-sniffing dogs away and poured 2 inches of oil under the bottom of the train car to keep U.S. inspectors from going in. To keep a legitimate facade, the cartel rented out warehouses and train cars by using front companies that looked like real businesses importing cooking oil. Workers put train spurs inside warehouses so that the trains could be parked there and drugs could be smashed out of the metal walls with a sledgehammer without law enforcement getting suspicious. Afterward, the trains went back to Mexico with legal goods. These trains brought up to $800 million worth of drugs into the U.S. However, in 2002, police found the trains, one of which was the largest drug seizure in New York City yet. Busted drugs and deadly wars with rivals damaged the Sinaloa cartel significantly. And to make matters worse, American authorities slowly turned El Chapo's close associates into cooperators. Now, the drug lord spent most of his time running from authorities, sometimes sleeping on the ground in mountains and waking up every half hour. Still, El Chapo kept coordinating cocaine purchases from Ecuador for a shipment to the US. You see, El Chapo was a man who indulged in pleasure. He greatly valued his family, and he wouldn't let a criminal pursuit take away meaningful moments with his family. So he took a big risk, which turned out to be a dangerous mistake. On the 16th of February in 2014, El Chapo and his sicario attended the family reunion in Sinaloa, but intelligence somehow got a hold of this information. The Mexican military and the DEA set out on a mission to capture the drug lord, confident that they would be successful. They arrived in a chopper and stopped at a distance to avoid suspicion, but when they got to the front door, the military realized the drug lord had played him. The door was made of reinforced steel, a material so strong it took 10 minutes for the military men to crush it. That's way more than enough time for El Chapo to successfully finish his escape. He ran to his bathroom, where he found his bathtub, and the bathtub was a ruse. It was a disguised trapdoor powered by a hydraulic piston system that revealed wooden steps beneath it, which then led to a dark, damp tunnel. While soldiers punched through this door, El Chapo escaped through a system of secret tunnels leading to 6 of his safe houses. However, victory didn't last long. Only a week after the bathtub tunnel incident, the DEA and Mexican Marines apprehended El Chapo at a beachfront hotel in Mazatlan. 10 pickup trucks and 65 Marines arrived at his door before the drug lord could do anything. He was taken in from bed from his wife's arms and imprisoned for his crimes. But that wasn't the end. El Chapo would have one last chance to use tunnels in his favor. El Chapo's devotion to his family would pay off, and greatly. After seeing his husband taken by federal authorities, Emma Coronel Espuro did pretty much everything she could to free him. She attended El Chapo's trial every day while plotting an escape with the cartel. While her husband was imprisoned by the Altiplano, Emma Coronel ordered the acquisition of a plot of land near the prison so that a tunnel could be dug there. Instead of the usual approach where the inmates dug their way out, El Chapo's army dug a way in from his safe house to his prison. But doing it wasn't an easy task, as you can imagine. It was very difficult. To ensure that the tunnel ended directly beneath El Chapo's prison cell, cartel members purchased a GPS watch that had to be placed inside of the prison to provide exact coordinates. A year after imprisonment, El Chapo made his escape by jumping off a motorcycle at the entrance of the tunnel and riding it to freedom. El Chapo's infamous and ultimately successful escape from Altiplano prison was his second time breaking out of a Mexican maximum security prison. But this escape had an alarming side effect. It had increased public pressure on the Mexican government to extradite El Chapo to the United States, and ignited the most outstanding criminal pursuit ever. El Chapo's freedom didn't last long. He was finally apprehended by Mexican authorities 6 months after his escape. But while he awaited extradition to a Juarez prison, his wife planned another escape. Emma Coronel tried relocating El Chapo back to the Altiplano prison in an attempt to aid in his escape. She allegedly bribed the director of prisons in Mexico with $2 million so that he'd help the cartel. However, the scheme failed, and in January of 2017, El Chapo was extradited to the United States. He pleaded guilty in the US to cocaine trafficking conspiracy and was sentenced to life in prison. Once united by crime, husband and wife won't live together ever again, unless the kingpin can dig his way out of the hole that he crawled into. El Chapo's method of smuggling drugs is jaw-dropping. But you won't believe what Pablo Escobar did instead. The kingpin moved 1 billion kilos of cocaine to the US by sea, and if you click here, you'll find out how.